Adjusting sound. Sound up, sound up, sound up, sound up, sound up, sound up, sound up. We'll try it there, see what happens. Hello, hello. Cut it down a little bit. There. Maybe that's better. Greetings, Augies worldwide. I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with our Saturday live stream, during which I'll try to answer questions that come both in the chat and the ones that have come in the email. I print them out so that I've got them right in front of me. It's hard to keep track of things when they're up. When they're just on the screen here. I wanted to point out first that these two people sent in their queries via ke0og.net/ask-dave, and they got scrambled. So if you would please resubmit, perhaps with a different browser, I can get your questions. I appreciate you trying. Most of them come through, but sometimes they don't. I have tried an email address, hamradioanswers, hamradioanswers@gmail.com, and for whatever reason, I'm not getting any of those. They don't seem to come through, so I think there is a problem with that. I have been having trouble with my email. I've been making queries to various people about aircraft and give them my email address, and sometimes things come and sometimes they don't. And it could be they didn't copy the email address down properly, or it could be that something is weird with Google, doesn't recognize them. I even tried putting the contact in my address book. And then I was talking to a guy in North Carolina and about an aircraft, and his stuff came through immediately. So strange. I don't understand it. I don't profess to understand it. But let's see, we're getting some questions here. Yes, let's see. Bad weather has moved out of southwest Missouri for a few days. Very good. No personal property damage, fortunately. The damage to retail stores and local business. Yeah, Benjamin has been living through the horrors of up close and personal what's going on in Minneapolis, and we extend to him our sympathy and moral support that he'll be safe and well as all those things sort themselves out. Sometimes those things take on a life of their own, and the psychological term for it is just pretty simple. It's mob. It's the mob rule. People get together and the natural atavistic tendencies come out, and people start doing things that they would never do in a normal setting. It's very bad. Let's see about last time on Thursday, I mentioned that 2 to 3 million people in the U.S. died of the 1918 pandemic. That is not correct. I looked that up. Wikipedia has some excellent articles not only on that pandemic but on the current pandemic, where the information, as near as I can tell, going through it, appears to be reliable. The 1918 pandemic killed between 600,000 and 850,000 Americans. Most of the people who died not of the flu directly, but of a bacterial infection that set in as a secondary infection. I had that happen to me once. I had the flu, I got better, and then I got worse and went to the doctor and discovered I had pneumonia. And I had to stay in bed for about 3 weeks, and believe me, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. But nowadays they can treat pneumonia, whereas they couldn't in 1918. When you look at it, the antibiotic movement in medicine is actually fairly new. It's less than 100 years old. Back in World War I, it's a little known fact, but one of the duties of the sergeant was to go ahead and, if anybody had a stomach wound, they were shot just out of sympathy, because the infection would get out of control and they would die a horrible death. But between the world wars is when we saw the invention of antibiotics, and so people could be cared for with that infection, which is another reason to go see the doctor if you do come down with something like that. And what happens is you get better, then you get worse, and that is where you need to, if that happens to you, you should see a doctor. Let's see. How large does a body of water need to be for noticeable benefit to signal? The answer is it needs to be salt water. Just plain body of water is not going to do you much good, because water, pure water, drinkable water, potable water, even agricultural water, is largely an insulator. This is why you can put, nuclear reactors are covered with water. If it's pure water, it's an insulator. It's also a neutron moderator, but it's an insulator. Whereas if you put any salt in there, terrible things happen. One of the problems that they have on submarines is if there are any leaks, they've got to keep the water away from the batteries, because the batteries, you put water in them. James is sending random letters. There is a problem with batteries have water in them. Of course, it's pure water. But if you get salt water in them, you can have an explosive hazard. So salt water is pretty nasty stuff, but it does make for an outstanding ground plane. And ships at sea can put out really strong signals because they're sitting in salt water. Their ships are really well grounded. Even though they're painted and all that sort of stuff, there's enough contact there that they're well grounded. So a body of water even the size of the Great Lakes is not going to do much for your signal, except you've got a nice smooth area that it can bounce off of nicely. But if you're sitting on the shore or an island or something like that where you have a large body of salt water, a salt marsh will do the same thing, and so on, it can really affect your signal. So let's see. I doubt very much that my instructor was roughing it. I think he was probably in an RV, which I'd love to do. We have RV. We haven't taken it out this year. We can't. Yeah, my wife reminded me that I tell ham radio operators not to get any equipment until they have their license. And she says, "Dear, you should follow your own advice." I was trying to get a airplane to learn in, but she says, get your license first and then get your airplane. And so the current plan is when I'm going to get what flying I can in. I've got about 5 rides so far, so that's not a huge amount. But I can't solo in the plane that we've got. I've got a solo in a light sport aircraft. So what the plan is once I pass my ground written exam, which will be a few more weeks. Sean McGrath is giving me my ground school, and he says it'll be 10 or 15 more lessons, and we're doing about 3 a week. When I finish that and get my written, then I will go to one of the 5 or 6 flight schools in the U.S. that give the light sport, that have light sport aircraft and give the sport pilot license, and there's one out in Carson City that's reasonably close, and there's a place so I can take the camper so I can live out there and just stay there till I get it and then buy the aircraft. So follow my own advice here, I guess. Let's see. Yeah, the Spanish flu was really, really nasty stuff. There are a number of people who it devastated towns. Up in the Arctic, there were whole communities, entire communities among the Inuit, Eskimo, whatever they want to call themselves. They call themselves first. I like the way the Canadians do it. They call them the First Nations. It'd wipe out whole towns. I mean, literally, everybody in town would be dead. So things can really happen. Yeah, Don, you're correct. Lakes don't count. I heard the sun has been super active recently. I haven't heard the same thing. But if the sun is putting out coronal mass ejections and they hit the Earth, it'll cause a geomagnetic storm which will almost completely block HF propagation, and you can get some fantastic aurora. Now, where you get the good propagation is on the rebound. When the propagation's bad for a few days, then it gets absolutely excellent for a day or two, and then it fades back to normal. Let's see. Maybe you should go visit Kevin in the desert for a few days. Yeah, Kevin is out in the desert. I think he's moved up around Kingman. Forget they use as a neutron moderator in the sodium reactor, certainly not water. There are, I'm trying to remember, my first wife worked for Westinghouse on the Clinch River breeder reactor project, and she was working on the cooling tubes on that. Must I load OmniRig to use SDR Uno with Ham Radio Deluxe if I want to sync tuning the radio through my computer? Pedro, I don't know. I've not done that. I know that Ham Radio Deluxe will control rigs directly and may very well control whatever your rig is. And I have used Ham Radio Deluxe, actually the DM780 portion of Ham Radio Deluxe, but there is a logbook with Ham Radio Deluxe. The sun has been active. Have you continued your buddy pole antenna since your video, and do you still recommend it for field day? It'll work fine. It's a compromise antenna. It operates by being heavily loaded, so it will get out. It will get out. Maybe not quite as good as a dipole at half wavelength, but it will get out and will work. Maybe 3 dB down from that. I do have my buddy pole. By the way, I paid for that with personal funds way back a while ago, before I really had channel funds to do that sort of thing. I've heard we're starting the next 11-year cycle. Yes, that is true. Note that 11-year cycles are not exactly 11 years. They can vary rather widely between the two, but we are at the bottom of the cycles. Okay, check out YouTube channel for weekly forecasts on space weather. Yeah, but the sun will wake up very slowly. We're going to see a peak in about 4 to 5 years, and then it tapers off kind of slowly. I remember not last cycle, but the cycle before that, there was some phenomenal DX. Oh, I was working Europe on 15 meters late at night. It was amazing. Okay. The reason you don't get any questions at Ham Radio is you keep telling people it doesn't work. Well, okay, well, that may be. Somebody try a couple, and we'll see. Still waiting for your video on the D-Star operation on the Icon 5100. The Icon 5100 is in the next room. I just need to do something with it. I've had it for a long time, I'm afraid to say. Pedro Marias, thank you very much for the first Super Chat of the day. Super Chat is open. Okay, let's take a look. I got a whole bunch of messages from Ishmael Samuel. J72IMS, who lives in Dominica, which is one of the Caribbean nations. About halfway between, I'd say, Puerto Rico and Venezuela, about halfway in between there. Each island is its own nation. There's no Federation of the Caribbean or anything like that. He's on Dominica. He is 16 years old, and he is trying to put together a ham station. And so we'll talk about Ishmael. He just said, hello, Dave. He says he doesn't have an antenna tuner, but has an SWR meter and wants to make an 80 meter vertical or 40 meter. Can I use aluminum wire, or can I just solder the center to a long line? If you're making a vertical, you can do a 40 meter vertical a lot easier. You can use aluminum pole or poles connected together 33 feet high, and then put a bunch of radials out there, which can be either aluminum or copper. Just note that when you connect copper to aluminum, there's going to be corrosion, and in your environment in Dominica, there will be corrosion quickly. So what you do is, and I'll show you how this works by going to the overhead, and hopefully I'm still getting volume. Oh boy, that's way up there, isn't it? Let's move the volume down about there. Gotta get Kleenex out. Let's suppose you have a piece of copper. Well, first of all, I want to draw the aluminum bolt. Okay, so this will be this is stainless steel. Get this from out of stainless. You can get stainless hardware at the hardware store. Okay, so what you would do is you put a washer right here, then you wrap your copper wire around it, put another washer, then you connect this to the aluminum, whatever it is. And this might be, I'm going to make it this big because this might be putting it through the bottom of an aluminum pole, okay? Then you put a washer, let's put the pole here. Here's the pole. Okay, so that's a washer, there's a washer there, and then you have a lock washer and a nut. Okay, now note that the copper only touches stainless steel, and the aluminum only touches stainless steel, and this will greatly reduce corrosion. Now, stainless steel is not a perfect metal itself, and will give you a tiny tendency to corrode. But if you put the copper directly on the aluminum, it will for sure corrode. And in the salt atmosphere in Dominica, it will corrode quickly. But so this is stainless, that's stainless. This is a stainless washer. This is stainless, copper, and stainless here, and a stainless bolt. Okay, so that is a good way to avoid corrosion. Let's come back to the normal view here. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Okay, and Vincent, welcome. At 33 feet, it's a quarter wave vertical on 40. Yes, it is. Now, he mentions that some sainted soul gave him an Ic735 Hf rig, which is an older rig, wants to make an 80 or 40 meter dipole without using an antenna tuner. You can make an RF choke balun. How do you make one? Well, you just go to vertical again, overhead. Here's how you make a dipole. You get a quarter or half wave of wire. You break it in the middle, and you connect this to the center of the coax. And then the outside of the coax, you connect to that one, and you've got your coax coming down like that. Now, you've got unbalanced to balanced. Some people find that to be a problem. I don't. So if you take this coax down and do about 9 turns, and the diameter here is about 9 inches, that will act as a choke balun and will help with any RFI feedback issues that you may have. I would try it first without that and see if that works for you. Okay, do I need an antenna tuner for the Ic735 Hf rig? I do not believe the rig, this is his rig right here, I do not believe that rig has a built-in antenna tuner. Okay, so what you want to do is build dipoles that are tuned antennas and get the SWR down under, let's see, I can't remember if the 735 has tube finals or transistor finals. If it has transistor finals, those early transistor rigs are pretty finicky about SWR. So you want your antenna tuned really well. If it's a tube radio, it actually can tolerate a much wider SWR, and then when you tune plate and load on the thing, you can get that thing matched up just real nice. Okay. Yeah, stainless steel is not completely rust-free, but in a dry environment like I have here, it works extremely well. In the environment that Ishmael has down in Dominica, it's humid and very salty. Salt air all around. Dominica is a pretty tiny island. Well, not tiny. I mean, it's big enough to be a country. By the way, Ishmael, once you do get on the air in single sideband, you will be much sought after because you are considered DX. And lots of people from the States will want to work you. How can I use, this is also from Ishmael, how can I use a 12-volt computer power supply for power your rig? I would not do that. I would use a regulation amateur radio power supply because actually you're looking for 13.8 volts, not 12. And the computer power supplies actually are 12 volts. They say 12 volts, they really are. In the ham radio community, we say 12 volts because that's the size of the battery that goes in an automobile. But actually, automobile circuits run somewhere between 13 to 15 volts. But 13.8 is kind of what most of the rigs pick. Okay. And Ishmael would like to do a Zoom call. I do not generally do one-on-one calls with subscribers. I just can't. I'm sorry. I really am sorry. I can't spread myself around. I will tell you that some of my viewers have become very good friends. Yeah. But I think the best way to work is through engagement like this, where I try to answer individual questions on YouTube and also by making videos and so on. This past week I only got one out. I hope you enjoyed it. I've been fighting depression, but it's gotten a little better the past few weeks. One of the benefits of being bipolar is that the depression will always cycle away. And there are people who have unipolar depression and it never cycles away. And oh gosh, that's a hard life. Depression is characterized by a total lack of ambition, and even easy things seem hard. It's something as simple as picking up the phone and calling somebody can be an insurmountable task. I've actually had my phone in my hand and just couldn't do it. I'm feeling a lot better right now. Samuel, I would suggest, and I think you've already done this, get to know the ham radio operators in Dominica, work with them, be eager to learn. Don't force yourself on them, but be very friendly and helpful. Help them with their projects and so on. Maybe one of them wants to put up an antenna. And I think you'll find some good friends in Dominica who can directly help you with your questions. SpaceX is launching in 30 seconds. Well, Joseph, let us know how it goes. Liftoff successful. Done launched. All right. Oh, yes, there go the astronauts on the first American launch in 10 years. Let's see. And we're all depressed lately, yes, I know. Doing better with that. Thank you very much. Let's see. All right, this one is from Don. This is his DX Commander plot. He got a DX Commander antenna, which is a very popular vertical antenna, and that shows the where the bands are, kind of vertical gray bars, and the line around it is where it has resonance, and it looks to be pretty good. I saw Callum on the YouTube Hamfest happy hour, and he renewed his promise that he's going to send me something to test. I hope I get a DX Commander, because then I can test one myself. It's a very popular antenna. Lots of people are trying one. What do grid tune made on a back of amplifier? Oh, that is for the grid neutralization. Okay. The problem with triode amplifiers is because of the inter-electrode capacitance between the grid and the plate. You get extra capacitance in there, and you combine that with all the inductance that's in the circuit, and it will resonate at VHF. And you get a little oscillator out of that thing. And you'll get that unless that little capacitance is very precisely neutralized. And so triode amps, which are very popular for power amplifiers, will do that. Now, if you put another grid in there called the screen grid, what that grid does is it reduces the capacitance in there. And so tetrode amplifiers usually don't need to be neutralized, but they're a little bit more expensive. So what I will say with that grid tuning on the back of your amplifier is don't touch it because it's set at the factory. Now, if you change tubes, for whatever reason you change tubes, replace one that burns out or whatever, you will have to re-neutralize. And the procedure for doing that is in the instruction manual. And believe me, I'd get help doing that from a ham who has done this for a long, long time, because it is a procedure that must be done properly, or you can cause real damage to the tube. And yes, tubes can be damaged. So that's what the grid tune is for. Normally, on a tube amplifier, you've got plate and load on the front, and you tune them as per the instruction manual. And there's an interactive tuning between them. Okay. All right. And Benjamin makes a pun on the launch. I'm delighted to hear that launch went well. I'm delighted with what SpaceX has been doing. I mean, of course, Elon Musk is a very unique individual, an immigrant, by the way, from South Africa. He's done some pretty interesting things and paid the salaries of a lot of people, so that is good. By the way, the other group that launches rockets is called the United Launch Alliance. And it's made up of your traditional aerospace firms, Lockheed, Boeing, so on and so forth. And the problem is, for quite a while, they were using surplus Russian engines. And that source is kind of drying up because of the current strained relations between us and Russia. There was a time when Russia and the U.S. was very close, but times change. And so whereas SpaceX makes its own engines, so they're American-made too. Okay, this is from Bob Lunsford, KK5R. Watched the video on the NFED dipole. That was that MFJ one that really is only for portable use. And he talks about different ways of using an NFED dipole. I would like to try an NFED dipole from a multiband NFED dipole from like My Antennas. Maybe I'll just go there and use channel funds and buy one and give it a try. Now, there's a different kind of NFED antenna called an NFED ZEP, which works exactly like a J-pole, same principle as a J-pole. And they're made by MFJ. I got one from MFJ that just did not work at all, and so I asked them for the manufacturing dimensions and found that the thing had been made way out of spec. And so I changed the dimensions to the manufacturing dimensions, and it worked fabulous. It was a single-band antenna. These are single-band antennas, NFED ZEPs. And wow, it worked well, worked really well across the entire band. BTECH mobile radio issue. I have a BTECH UV-50x2 mobile radio in my trunk, which suddenly only seems to work when the money function button is engaged. This works, but I like using the radio with regular squelch. Any thoughts at all? May have changed the setting. Sounds like you changed the squelch setting. Set the setting back to what it says in the manual is the default. And if worse comes to worse, go ahead and do a factory reset, which will set it back to where it should be. I think that'll get you figured out. Now, BTECH is actually supported out of the USA. You might be able to get some direct support from the USA importers, although there's, I think, only 2 of them, so it's a little hard to get that thing to work. But if all else comes to worse, do a factory reset. I know that means you got to reprogram the radio, but it's an FM-only radio. Try Chirp or whatever the software is that comes with it. Let's see. Glad you're feeling better. Hipster spacesuits. Oh, everything is design. You can see a designer has had at that thing. Just a comment, I saved a ton buying my Luscombe aircraft during my training for private pilot. Probably paid about 50% of the aircraft that way. It was $13K at the time. You can still get them for around $13K. They are definitely antique aircraft. So with all the maintenance that comes with that. Yeah, I was trying to do that. Let's see. The staging was successful on the SpaceX. That's wonderful. They're saying that those modern tubes will likely outlive you. They can. So I'll make the 80 dipole using aluminum wire. If you've got the room for it, it's 132 feet long. Mr. Musk reminds me a bit of Howard Hughes. I'm not sure Howard Hughes was quite that pesky. Elon Musk hates reporters. And, oh, gee. And Dennis, thank you for your expression of solidarity there. Trying to convince the ISS to adopt me. Yeah. It can be. Fortunately, things are starting to open up a little bit. We are having a bit of a rebound, tiny bit of a rebound here in the western Colorado. So, oh yes, that's the next thing to see if the if the rocket comes back down. Somebody told me not to buy their 1788 magnetic loop. Actually, I have one. I think mine's the 1786. And it came with quality problems, which I was able to fix. And it does work. It's still up on my roof. Help me. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for the kind words. Have you had any experience with capacitor-coupled antennas? Well, if you're referring to those VHF antennas where you put a plate up on a window and on the other side, they work. They work just fine. Mission controller all wearing masks. That's good. Setting a good example. Says morning hush is Hoshnazi on. I didn't see the names here. Yeah, Monty is to monitor the input frequency on a programmed repeater frequency. Yes, I know. And I'm sick about things, and I can tell you they all have their own personality. Ham Radio Crash Course. Hi, everybody's saying hello to Josh Nash, who's the guy behind Ham Radio Crash Course. And Paul, thank you very much for your super chat. I appreciate it very much, and thank you for the kind words. Let's see. Dennis Dunderdale has a half-wave end-fed 80-6 from Princeton out of Associated Antenna in Kansas City. Works very well on 80 through 20. Higher frequencies, not so well. Use a square halo for 6 meter. Works very well. Hughes was pretty out there toward the end. Well, yeah, Hughes was very obsessive-compulsive. Yeah, I can remember when he was living in Las Vegas on the top floor of the Desert Inn, and then he got chased out of country and ended up somewhere down in the Central America. Associated Radio, okay. Ham Radio Crash Course. Hello, Josh. How are you? Good to see you here today. Let's see. This next one is from Mike Carrington, KG0P, says, I watched your edition related to power supplies a while back and was moved to buy a power supply in the PowerWorks package. Now I'm scratching my head, wondering how to consolidate the DC volts from the power for all my power needs. You need to look at the reference station at dcasler.com/reference. It lists the little power distribution device. And that power distribution device is from West Mountain Radio, and it is a 6-position little strip where you can connect the Anderson power pole connectors and a 7th to connect to the source. So your power supply goes in the source, and then you can plug in a couple radios, your clock, whatever you want to put in there that needs 12 volts. I call it a power distribution system. They call it a rig runner. But look in there, and if you look at dcasler.com/reference, it will tell you the exact model number. And I did a video about it, so you can take a look at that and see how that works. First stage successful landing at sea. All right. Yes, Josh is on at 7 p.m. Central Time. Josh, why don't you put up the times that you were on there so everybody can see them and I don't guess, because I thought you were on Friday nights, so I must be wrong. By the way, this behind me here, I've stopped kind of reviewing radios, but I have sort of a relationship with Radiodity with the guy who, I don't know if he tends to all the YouTube people, but he tends to me. He's very friendly and helpful. And this is a new FM-only Radiodity handheld dual band. And so there will be a review of that coming up soon. I haven't done reviews because literally the handhelds pile up in the other room. And I've got a bunch I need to give away or that sort of thing. Okay, 7 p.m. Central Time on Saturdays, 5 p.m. PST. Okay, everybody take note of that. And that's great. I see we have a bit of an overlap in subscribers here. Okay. Interested in how you hook up power. I did a video on my station. That's several videos back. Go to youtube.com/Dave Casler, all one word, DAVECASLER, no T, just one S. And you'll come to my channel, and then in the middle there you can click videos. If you click on videos, it shows you the videos in reverse order of when I've put them up. So, and I put up an awful lot during the pandemic because I was putting up one a day there for a while. So you'll find things about the QrpLabs clock, which I run off 12 volts to a little 12 to 5 conversion, and so on. And I have behind my desk here a computer type surge protector, which has about 10 outlets in it. And that's hooked up behind the desk, and that's where I plug in all the 110 volt things like the power supply and the wall wart for the step IR and things like that. So this is from Jason, KD9HFW. November 2018 issue of QST. This is an article for building a dummy load in a quart-sized can with 20 resistors and mineral oil. And it said, get 1K ohm 3 watt non-inductive metal film resistors. In my scrap box, I found a bag of new old stock 1K ohm 2 watt metal oxide resistors. So you put the thing together and then discovered that on HF it has an SWR of about 5 to 1. The type that you built there is good for HF. Now here's what happens. Now I'm going to go to the overhead here. Been using the overhead a lot today. You have a resistor. Now this wire right here has a tiny amount of inductance. It's a one-turn coil. A one-turn coil means to most people a zero-turn coil, but it's a one-turn coil, so you've got some inductance down here too. And then between here and here, there's an extremely tiny amount of capacitance. And so this right here at a VHF frequency is going to act like this. It's going to act like this circuit with a resistor, which will tend to broaden the Q, a capacitor, and an inductor. That's a coil. Doesn't look like one. Okay, so, and it's what? The frequency is 1 over 2 pi square root of LC. So these are very tiny values. Very tiny amounts of inductance and capacitance. So the square root of a tiny amount is a tiny amount. You invert it, you get a large amount. And so your frequency is going to be large. And in your case, using those new old stock, that's NOS, resistors, it is going to be resonant somewhere. Now, where it is resonant, you'll have a very high, if you were to measure the impedance, it's an impedance meter. Where it is resonant, it will have a very high impedance. Now, where it is not resonant, these drop out and you just have the resistance, okay, which will give you a 1-to-1 SWR. But when these come into play here, you will find a high SWR at VHF. And in your case, it looks like that's tuned right at 2 meters. Get back to the normal view here. So that's what's happening in your homebrew resistor, or homebrew dummy load. It's for VHF only. My dummy load, my Heathkit antenna, it has the same resonance issue, but it's at about 110 kilohertz, 110 megahertz, 110 megahertz. So it gets a nice low SWR and then goes way off the graph and then comes back down. And at VHF, it's okay. It's an okay dummy load. At UHF, it's a little iffy. But you have to remember that all capacitors have some inductance and some resistance. All resistors have some capacitance and some inductance. Nothing is pure in real life. So, by the way, there are models for doing that, so you can look them up and see what's going on. My ICOM 701 just died in a puff of smoke, need a new radio. Would you recommend the 718 or the FT891? I would recommend the ICOM 7300, but if you are used to the ICOM way of doing things, get the ICOM. But I'm trying to, the reference station, look up the reference station at dcasler.com/reference. Will show you all the different parts that I'm picking out. I actually changed my station to the reference station. So everything I'm putting in the reference station, I'm putting in my station, including the antenna and all that. Right now my antenna, I've got the 17754 up, but I'm going to put up the reference back up here a little bit. No, that's not Dominica, Carol. The Dominican Republic is in the east half of Hispaniola, Haiti's on the west, but Dominica, you've got to go south in the Caribbean chain of islands, and you'll find Dominica. Hello from Iraq. Hello. Thank you for hanging the great explanation of the dummy load. Okay. Can you use an antenna analyzer with a dummy load to find its resonant frequency? Yes, you can. Look for where the SWR goes sky high, and that will be probably the resonant frequency. And note that like most things in nature, it may have more than one resonant frequency. Okay, yeah, we're doing on time. Oh, this is from Raymoond Anderson, KJ7KCB. What are the benefits of getting the amateur extra license? Well, in terms of specific benefits, you get the other half of the HF bands. The general allocations are a little wider than they used to be because they've done away with the advanced, but you get all the HF allocations as an extra. Now, I will tell you that most of the HF activity takes place in the general band because that's where most hams are. It's that old networking effect. The more people you can network with, the more valuable the network. Well, there are more generals than extras. Extras are about 18% of the ham populations. Generals are about double that, and then the rest are techs. And there's actually a little sliver of advanced still left, and a tiny, tiny, tiny sliver of novices who keep renewing their licenses. I hear a lot of hams saying they spent their stimulus on the Yaesu FT991. Sure, why not? Let's see, between 7300 and the 3000, have you found anything you miss when using the 3000? I think some of the noise reduction stuff was a little easier on the 7300. Most of the features are built into the... The 3000 is more a mid-level radio. It's not an entry-level radio. It has more noise-fighting capabilities and stuff like that. It has a special noise blanker setting that will blank out the Chinese radar, that Chinese over-the-horizon radar that has been plaguing our ham bands a little bit. See, other than the dipole or vertical, what simple HF antenna can I make? This from Ishmael. Stick with the dipole if you can. They're simple, they're inexpensive, and they perform well. And are you going to sell the 3000? No. If you get the FTDX 3000, you miss out about another $2,000. It's actually only running about 1,300 these days. Don, you're correct. A loop. Delta loop will work if you've got some tall trees there. I suspect they're palms, which don't always get that high. But there are tropical trees that get pretty high. This is from Jeff Wittern KE0KRO. Love the live feeds. Have a question. He has an Alpha Delta DXCC, which is an 80 through 10 fan dipole. A friend said he talked to a person at Alpha Delta, and they said that you should have a balun at the base of the antenna to keep the power coming back down your coax. Does this sound correct to you? You certainly can. I didn't. I have had bad luck with baluns and dipoles, and I tend to run my dipoles with the feed line connected directly to the cut point. I made a video. You'll have to go back a little ways. Somebody here maybe can put the number of that video, about making a dipole just out of house wire. I took 66 feet of white THHN house wire and made a 40-meter dipole out of it, and I had to adjust the length a little bit to get it right, but it worked just fine. Of course, it's single band. If you had a tube radio like my old Heathkit HW16, you could run that on 15 meters too, but the SWR is a little greater than 2 on that. If you have a tuner, you can do that. A lot of DX happens in the extra portions. If you pass your general, you can do it. There is a significant step up in difficulty between the general and the extra, because there used to be the advanced in the middle. And the advanced used to be the tough test, technically. And then the extra was mostly about volunteer examining and things like that. Well, they moved all the tough stuff into the extra. It is close to, but not quite at an engineering level. They have introduced more engineering concepts over the past 10 years or so. For years, they taught about reactance and resistance not mixing real well. They'd give some occasional formulas, but the I and Q, the in-phase and the quadrature stuff didn't really hit the extras until about, I'd say, 15 years ago. And that brought it closer to an engineering level. But look at my videos. I've got videos on it. I suspect most of those videos will stay in place. But I understand there is some new material, and it's probably on software-defined radios. I've got my book on order. It's supposed to be printed in the middle of June, but it won't ship for about 4 weeks. So I'll get it in July sometimes, and then I'll start work on updating the videos. And Don is reviewing the extra videos. I hope they are helpful, Don. Let's see, don't have tall trees. Well, delta loop can be deployed with a single tall pole and then a couple of sticks. If you study hard, you'll get your extra. Well, the most important word in ham radio is perseverance, as it is in so many other pursuits. Delta loop, yep. I hear that some automatic tuners will start retuning when you are transmitting and destroy your output transistors. Have you ever heard that? It can happen if something happens to your antenna. Wind, blowing the thing around, a fault in the antenna, and so on. I have not had that problem, and most radios, when they see the SWR go up, will drop out. My antenna, or my amplifier, right over here. One of the reasons I got rid of the butternut HF9V was because it was so worn out that whenever it would get windy, I'd get little spots where the SWR would spike. And every time I got one of those, the amplifier would drop out. And so I finally replaced the antenna. I ended up replacing it with the Step IR, Big IR, which turned out to be a very nice antenna. It's really expensive, but let's see. Going to try before the new question pool is out. Well, more VEs are giving exams. Our local VE group is going to go ahead with a socially distanced exam. They use a large basement, a great big giant room with direct access to the outside for their VE sessions, and there's enough room in there they can spread out and do their social distancing while they do the exam. So they're going to do that in June. It's coming up real soon. Although set for the ARRL exams, your videos helped me ace my Canadian Advanced exam. Ended up with over 90%. Great, Dave. Congratulations. And Joseph is studying for his general. Good luck with your studies. And this is from Oscar Hotel 8, Bravo Lima Whiskey, who says that the material was helpful for his exams. Christopher Goodman says, I'm using a Phantom 4 drone to put up a G5 RV dipole using one of my tall trees. Good. I'd like to see a video of how you do that. That would be great. We're not going to get through all the questions today. Let's see. This is from Mike Carrington, KG0P. My first license was a novice back in '69, so he predates me by about 6 years. I could work my way through the schematics and understood the vacuum tubes. Time has passed, during which I wasn't active, and they invented transistors, and he can't figure out what's happening. Where can I find a reference with an easy way to teach me how to keep track of what's happening? Of course, the tech in general videos that I have will have sections on active devices that you can look at, and I explain them there. Another thing that you can do, there's a book by the ARRL on basic electronics, or you can check the rather terse chapter at the very beginning of the Radio Amateur Handbook. The handbook is more application-oriented rather than theory-oriented. but you can find out what's going on. The key, I think, to understanding tubes versus transistors is tubes are primarily voltage-driven devices. The voltage on the grid changes the current to the plate, whereas the transistor is a current-driven device. The change in base current, not voltage, the change in the base current controls the change in the current from the emitter, or from the collector to the emitter, or the emitter to the collector, depending on whichever one you're using, NPN or PNP. But it's the current change. So you bias transistors entirely differently from the way you bias tubes. And you still have your three basic types of amplifiers that are the equivalent of grounded cathode, grounded grid, and there is a version for the grounded plate. But it's most transistors. Well, there's the emitter follower, which is like the cathode follower and stuff like that. But you can figure out transistors. The key thing to remember is don't make them more complicated than they are. If you just remember that a change in current controls a change in current, rather than a change in voltage controls the change in the current, you'll be fine. Special Event Station is on the air from Grand Junction, Whiskey Zero Mike. Okay, good. I'll have to look for it. Oh, yeah, I hope, Carol, that you found, well, it's Glenn, that you found found it on a map. Look up maps.google.com and insert Dominica as a country, and it'll take you there and show you the island. It's VE will be doing testing on Tuesday the 9th of June in Sioux Falls. Okay. The headless chicken, yes, they had a headless chicken in Grand Junction for years, till somebody tried to put the feed down the air pipe and asphyxiated the chicken. That headless chicken lived for a very, very long time. I don't know, I'd try 20. See if you can find them. Okay, we're getting real close. One more here. Okay, that was the one on. Do commercial bought mobile ham radio antennas for VHF, UHF need matching when used as base? If it's a mag mount, yes, you've got to find a magnetic, a steel something to put it on. I've actually used the top of my filing cabinet to just plunk the mag mount antenna there and use it. Mobile antennas, presume there's a car or a truck. Okay, so when you use one of those mobile antennas as a base antenna, you're going to have to provide a counterpoise of some kind. Okay, I hope that helps. What I would do, Brian, when you get your tech, is get a J-pole. Either get one, they usually come roll up, or build one. There's lots of antenna plans on the internet, and you'll have a good base station app for that. And I'm going to give you the advice my wife reminds me I always give. Don't buy any equipment until you've got your license. So we'll see you then. 17 meter FT8, okay. Well, if it's on FT8, it's on a particular frequency. Filing cabinets equal virtual car, yes. We'll see if there's an exam session near Philly. Okay, well, very good. We are out of time. I very much enjoyed the time with you. Later on this afternoon, Callum is on from the UK. It's in the late afternoon, our time. I'm not sure specifically which. And Josh is on, and where did he put that? Josh, send it again. Callum comes on before Josh. Okay, we'll make Saturdays a busy day. Josh is on at 7 p.m. Central, which is 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so 6 Mountain and 8 Eastern. And you can go to Josh's channel. His channel name is Oceanazi, so just go look for that, Oceanazi. ISHNASI. Put that in the search bar in YouTube and you'll find it very quickly. All right. Some people are doing them outside. It's great. 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time for Callum. Okay, and I'll let you do the conversions. So, thank you all very much for your time. Thank you for your interest in my flying, which is the airplane's not available now that my flight instructor's available. And, oh man, it's so hard to get in flight time. There's only one aircraft in the area for rent, and it's not in good shape. So the plan right now is to pass my written, which I'm making good progress thanks to Sean McGrath in ground school. I'm doing it over Skype. And then I will go find a flight school that caters to sport pilots. Like I said, there's one in Carson City. And finish it up and then find myself an airplane. The problem with aircraft in the light sport category is the total payload's only about 500 pounds. And that includes the people and the fuel. And I weigh half that. I need to lose weight. And so that doesn't leave much for fuel and an instructor. I need an instructor who's a high school student or something, at 110 pounds. And then I've got a little left for some fuel. So I'm going to say 73 to everybody. It has been a wonderful time with you. I really love this time. I'm very grateful that the Dragon did well. I'm grateful for all your support. Super Chat is open still and will be for another minute or so. And we will... Oh, Randy, thank you very much. And so I will see you again on Thursday evening in the U.S. It's actually 0100 UTC Friday. And I will try and get a couple more videos out between now and then. I've got this radio to do. I've got some kits I could do and some fun stuff like that. So we'll see you next time. And I will say to you, until we next meet, 73.